Hope you got your questions ready, guys. So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Christina Bell-Perrier. I'm the Policy and Partnerships Manager with the Tourism Industry Council of SA. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this webinar from the lands of the Kaurna people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands where you all join us from today, the First Nations people participating in this webinar. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of First Nations people and their ongoing cultures and connections to the lands and waters of South Australia. So our In Conversation series is a series of short webinars as part of our business development program, and they're to provide you wonderful tourism operators insights and advice that can help you with business planning and operations, and nothing more pertinent than insurance when it comes to these types of considerations. And so I've got quite a number of questions for our guests today, but it's very much open to your input. So please do pop questions in the chat, put your hand up if you want to ask the question yourself, and we'll very easily pop to those as we're going along. Don't feel like you're interrupting at all. So please do, though, just keep your microphone on mute while we're having a chat, but we'll ask you to come off mute if you want to ask some questions. So in today's In Conversation, we're very lucky to be joined by two fabulous guests, our value partner Gallagher's insurance brokers, as well as the Australian Tourism Industry Council, to discuss the risks of underinsurance in the tourism industry. So we know the world's continuing to evolve, and so do risks and challenges facing your businesses. And insurance is a really important part of your risk management tools and strategies that help you ride the waves of the threats to your business and make sure you're as resilient as possible. So today we've got Martin Luck. Many of you might have met Martin. He's a senior account manager from Gallagher Australia, and he's going to talk through underinsurance and some steps to mitigate the risk. And we're also joined by Erin McLeod, who's the CEO of the Australian Tourism Industry Council, who's going to talk through quality tourism accreditation and how becoming accredited can really help you cover all your bases. But before we start, I'd love you to both introduce yourself. So I'll get Martin to take himself off mute and do a quick 30-second intro.
Yeah, hi, my name's Martin, and I've been with the insurance broking industry for almost 30 years now, and I started my career as a young lad and worked right through to various insurance, from personal home right up to corporate and commercial complex. And I love what I do because I can put people's lives back after they suffer an insurable event. And I just enjoy meeting lots of different people, and yeah, pretty proud of what I do.
Thank you, Martin. And if you ever come to any of our events, often Martin's there and he loves to have a chat. So yes. Good to put a face to the name sometimes. And Erin, do you mind doing a little intro as well?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Christina. Hi, everybody. Erin McLeod from the Australian Tourism Industry Council. I've been a part of the tourism industry for close to 20 years now, but more than half of that has been involved in accreditation programs, and am very fortunate to be working for the Australian Tourism Industry Council, where we run the quality tourism framework, which many of you are engaged with through ATIC SA. And we're continuously developing the programs that we have available there for you. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the recent updates that we've made to the quality tourism framework.
And great to have you join us today, Erin, and give that picture sort of, I guess, broader across Australia as well, which is always really insightful. So I'm going to kick off with some questions for Martin and dive straight into insurance. So let's start with the top line. Why is it important that every business stays on top of their insurance?
It's very important to stay on top of your insurance. It's a great question because businesses change from year to year, uniqueness, and it's very important that you disclose all of your activities to the insurer to ensure, one, that you are compliant and you are complying with the policy's terms and conditions. It's also very relevant to stay on top, as we've sort of said, with look at post-COVID, the escalation in costs of materials, staffing, and people sometimes haven't made allowances with their insurance policies or their advice to their insurance consultant, agent or broker. And therefore, they could be leaving themselves in a position of one, not being insured, or allowing the insurer to rely on exclusions to say, well, we didn't tell us about this activity, you're not going to be insured. So it's very important to stay abreast of all of your insurance documents. And that's why we also advocate to make sure you seek the professional services of an insurance broker or an insurance consultant, because it's up to them to ask those questions and discuss with you the trends in the business, what's happening in the business, where's the future of the business going, what do you want to look into, and don't just assume that you're insured for something when you may not be.
And so that's a good point, Martin. Is that a broker will dive into more of those questions than if you just dealt with the insurer one-to-one, that they'll help you navigate those questions?
That's absolutely correct, Christina. There's two models with insurances. One is what we call general advice. So that's when you deal with a direct insurer. So they'll rely on saying, we can't give you any personal advice. We rely on general advice only, saying basically, here's your insurance policy. It's up to you to read, interpret it, and make decisions yourself. Whereas if you go to the advice model, which is through an insurance broker, we legally have to provide you with the correct advice based on your personal circumstances and your needs. And that way we can tailor the insurance policy to suit your needs and wants. That's the difference between the two models. And that's why we're saying if you rely on going to the direct market, you're basically putting faith in you understanding the complexities of an insurance document or wording or clauses. Whereas an insurance broker, it's up to us to advise and point that out to you. And underinsurance is one of those key areas where we do give a lot of advice in relation to various, like whether it be your sums insured for fire and perils, but most importantly, it's your gross profit. Like, how's the business going to have it survive an insurable event? How's it going to keep paying fixed costs? And secondly, which is something a lot of people don't talk about, is underinsurance in relation to public liability. So because if you're doing hazardous activities that involve children or large public gatherings, how much insurance is enough? And this is the conversations we can have, whereas the direct market, they just say, here's your quote, and then it's up to you to interpret if that suits your needs. Yeah.
So on the topic of underinsurance, it's, from what we gather, it's quite prevalent at the moment. Why do you think that is?
Well, there's various factors for it. And in fact, I've got some statistics here. When we look at it, we got 25% of SME businesses don't have any insurance at all, which is alarming. And then you look at, we say that between 70 to 80% of businesses are underinsured, which can result in huge implications. But sometimes it's people with, example, COVID was a classic where people got caught unaware of the escalation cost of materials. So that's a classic. But if you're looking at your business, what we sort of say is, look, everything's going up. What's it going to cost you to replace that item? You bought this new plant from Germany, or you bought this new refrigerator. What's the lead times? Again, this is where what we sort of say is people get caught because they just assume and say, oh yeah, well, I can replace that for, you know, $10,000, Martin, or yeah, my mate's a builder, he said he could build it for 3,000. But how are you substantiating those replacement costs? And I think that's a lot of people guess. They're guessing how much it would cost to repair, rebuild, or replace their contents. And I think the guessing, there's no real science to what they're applying to their sums insured. And we can help with that process to educate them and talk about what things cost and what we see in claim examples and the escalation costs of materials and labour shortages and those sort of things that come into play when you're looking to rebuild or repair an insured damage. So that's sort of what we talk about. There's also, people forget about, you know, demolition costs and professional architect fees, all these hidden costs that are associated with rebuilding that a lot of people don't take into account with their
Yeah.
underinsurance. And I think that has the implication, or simply what we sometimes see when we approach a new business is that they said, oh, look, we just rolled it over. We just said, yeah, that's about right. That's about right. And of course, 5 years' time, the sum insured hasn't changed. Therefore, clients have been caught out in relation to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might be guilty of doing that with my home and contents insurance.
Yes. Well, it does. We do see it, and we sort of say it's something you need to, again, and this is where, as the advice model, the consultation, when we provide you the consultation, we'll be saying, hey, have you bought any new equipment? You know, what's changed with your business? What's changed in your environment? What's happening in the industry? What's the latest trends? And then we can look to have those conversations. Yeah.
And I guess it's, we don't know what we don't know, and operators are busy running their businesses. But if they haven't been through a catastrophic event,
correct,
as you say, you just don't know. So what do you say are the main types of insurance coverage relevant for the tourism sector? And, are there ones that are being missed more frequently? Are there ones that are obvious and others that aren't as obvious?
So I'll put it into two categories. You got hospitality, and then you got sort of leisure, which is tourism and things like that. With the tourism, we tend to see gaps with like public liability. See, some will buy $10 million, some will buy 20. It really depends on what their requirement is. Going to say, well, the council only wants 10. And I say, I don't care what the council wants. What's gonna put you out of business is a large liability claim. So we see that on that aspect. But when it comes to businesses like restaurants, cafes, retail outlets, anything to do where there's customers, is we see a really low sum insured for the gross profit. And what we call the indemnity period is when people say, okay, we'll take out 12 months loss of profits cover. We need to look to have an 18-month or 24 months indemnity period to cover your loss of income. And that's where we see a lot of businesses don't survive, is because they have inadequate business interruption, what we call gross profit insurance. Fire sums insured, most of the time are not underinsured, but again, we seek the site. You need to get a valuation to ensure that the values are representative of the full replacement value. But the gross profit, business interruption is the key area that I see a lot of underinsurance in. And then there is penalties that the insurer applies. If you don't insure correctly, the insurer does apply a penalty for underinsurance. So with that, we work through your budgeted financials, and we work through the process so you can survive an insurable event. Because the best way to explain business interruption, it's when the business ceases and there's no income being produced, the insurance company will pay you that income based on your historical financial data. That's why it's imperative when you consult with us that we will request copies of your profit and loss, and we will do a calculation of where we think your business is trending and how you need to have the appropriate sum insured to replace your loss of income. And what we sort of say is that when there was the pandemic, the government were doing all handouts, things like that. If you suffer a fire or a major insured loss, there is no handouts. So that's why it's important to have the business interruption insurance correct. So that's my take on it, is, make sure you understand what it's going to cost to replace equipment in today's environment. Like, you may have bought that 5 years ago, but to replace that item today is going to be a lot more expensive. And you need to factor that in.
And is again, that time, are you seeing that time period for the loss of income stretching out as well because of how long it can take to replace, rebuild?
Correct. Yeah, and then that's exactly right. And if you're in remote locations, and this is where it's prevalent to when we look at holiday parks or remote restaurants, wineries, all those tour operators that run a business in remote locations, it's getting access to the trades and access to the materials. And then, for example, you might have a fire, happens on day one, the fire calls it wants to investigate it, the police are investigating as well. So it could be 3 months before anything happens, and then the insurer goes, we've completed our investigation, there's no suspicious circumstances, the fire was caused from an electrical fault. Then they start getting quotes to rebuild, and then 5-6 months later the rebuild happens. So that's why we say you need to look at your indemnity periods. And again, this is the consultation. How quick can your business survive, or how quickly can you get back into business? If you're reliant on your location, such as a restaurant, well, then that's imperative. But if you're a tour operator and your office burns down, then you can easily relocate and still continue your business because you're operating a bus service or a chauffeur service, which is easy to get back into business. But if you're reliant on your location, then this is when the gross profit is really, really prevalent. Same like a holiday park, you can't just pick up and rebuild a park while they're rebuilding the other one. So that's when we like to have those conversations.
Sure. I was going to ask if you have any examples of businesses impacted by underinsurance, just to give some ideas of the risks around being underinsured.
Yes, well, we've sort of seen in COVID where we had a situation where they allowed for their increased sums insured, but of course then with COVID and the cost of materials, they were about 30% underinsured. And we worked with the insurer so there wasn't too much of a penalty applied because people didn't foresee these escalations. But now the insurance companies are saying, well, you're fully aware of the escalations. If you don't insure correctly, you're going to be penalised. So in a very, very simple analogy, because the formula is quite complicated for underinsurance, but to simplify it, if they're saying that, Christina, you should have insured your building for $100,000, you've only insured it for $50,000, you're deemed to be 50% underinsured. So therefore, they'll pay 50% of your sum insured. So you'd be paid $25,000 for your $100,000 loss.
Yeah, right.
That's a very simple calculation, and that's why it's imperative to get it correct. So, and there's small allowances within that formula, but without getting too technical in today on the webinar, but we go through that technicalities with the client. So we take all that pain away from you, and it's our professional advice to give you that and explain where you'll be situated.
And I think, that simple takeaway is just because being underinsured doesn't mean you're going to get the amount that you've insured yourself for. You're actually going to get a much lower proportion of that.
That's correct. And the good example, we work with our clients and I sort of say, look, what's going to shut your doors? What's going to cause you to pull the kids out of private school or make sacrifices because you don't have the correct insurance? I sort of say, what's going to shut which is a large fire or large loss of income. So what we try and work with our clients and say, look, okay, burglary is quite expensive for some businesses, depending what business you sector into. So we say, I'd rather if someone steals $20,000 worth of equipment, yes, it's going to hurt the business, but it's not going to hurt the business if they suffer a $200,000 fire. So we say, how to best spend your budget. And that's, again, this is that consultation. We say, well, okay, have a lower theft sum insured, but I'd rather you use that premium to have the correct gross profit or fire insurance in place, because that's what's going to shut the doors. A burglary is going to hurt, but it's not going to shut the doors, whereas $1 million fire that's not correctly insured will close the doors of the business.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are the first steps to ensuring that businesses have the correct insurance?
Yeah, so but basically I sort of put it down to 4 basic tips: is review your policy every year, understand what you're purchasing, seek advice from a insurance professional, and make sure that you obtain a valuation and not do a guesstimate based on your materials, plant, machinery, contents, stock. Make sure that you're insuring for the full value. And that's the 3 basic tips we can say. Is evaluation is probably your first step to say, well, we haven't had, and valuations are important, but not a bank valuation, because the bank will look at a second-hand brick is worth 50 cents, where an insurance valuation says, no, new for old, we have to replace that old brick with a new brick, and a new brick costs $1 today, not 50 cents. So that's why we say don't go on a bank valuation, go on an insurance replacement valuation, or even better is through a quantity surveyor, which is a specialist construction calculation, because they'll allow for escalations during the build, material escalations, professional services, removal of the debris. So that's another one that people forget, is that you've got to pay to remove all the rubbish as well, all the debris. So that's my basic takeaways. But again, I keep saying, if you seek the professional services of an insurance broker, we will go through this with you, because that's what we're paid to do. And we'll be professional negligent if we don't give you that advice. So yes,
absolutely. And it's probably a good moment to remind those on the call or watching this recording that if you are a ATIC SA member, Gallagher being one of our trusted partners, you have the opportunity to access a free, no obligation insurance health check. And Martin is your key contact for that, and we'll send those contact details around, or you can access that through the member portal on the ATIC SA website. If anyone has any questions at this point, please feel free to raise your hand or pop a question in the chat. But I know Vicky Taylor's on the line, and she put a question in when she registered about her business being brand new for Australia, and it doesn't fall into any business or insurance categories, and what should she do? So I don't know, Vicky, if you wanted to elaborate any further on that, or just allow Martin to respond to that question. If you wanted to take yourself off mute.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah, so I have got business insurance, but I know that I'm not properly covered. I know that it's not covering me in the way that it should, because one of the insurance people told me that it's not properly, and I've been looking actually for an insurance broker to get it reviewed. I do need it looking at, and I do need to make sure that I'm insured properly.
Correct. We'd be more than happy to help you out there, Vicky. As I said, we offer a free health check. In fact, we've done quite a few TICs and members. We've had a look at their program and said, look, the program is really well together. There's not a lot that we can provide. If you want to engage with Gallagher, we certainly can, or you can stay with your current provider. So we've certainly helped a lot of businesses, but we've also made sure that, look, you're on the right page. Their current insurance professional is doing an excellent job and doing exactly what he or she should be doing. So we give that free advice. So we're more than happy to engage with yourself, Vicky, and go through and discuss your business in detail and find the best solution for you. We deal with various complex clients. Gallagher is an international insurance broker, so we have access to world markets, not just local markets. So we can always find the solution.
Yeah, that sounds great, because caravan brokerage in Australia is brand new. It is in the rest of the world, but yeah, it's brand new for here. And I know that I was told after my first year of being insured, and I can't remember the company I'm with now, that's terrible, but anyway, I'll have to have a look and refresh myself. But one of their workers told me that I wasn't actually, I didn't actually have the correct cover, and someone else rang me and, tried to get me on the right track, but they just don't cover caravan brokers. So they put me down, or my company down, as a dealership, which I'm not. And then, and I've paid for it and everything, because I just sort of panicked and thought, oh, well, I'll have something. But obviously the rational me, I know that I'm not properly insured and I need to get it reviewed. So yeah,
we certainly would. We'd be lovely to try and help you. Yes.
Sounds like a great opportunity, Vicky. So
yes,
connect with Martin.
No, that's okay. And I won't steal Erin's thunder, but I will support what Erin's going to talk about shortly. So yes, which is very important, forms part of our solution as well. But I'll let Erin run with that. So
fabulous segue. Thank you, Martin.
No worries. Thank you.
So if anyone has any more insurance questions, please pop them in the chat and we can come back to them. But I would love to hand over to Erin now, or not hand over, but quiz her further. And we're going to dive a bit more into quality tourism accreditation and around risk management, because insurance is one part of your risk management toolkit there. So I guess, Erin, did you want to maybe start off with a quick overview of quality tourism accreditation and how it helps businesses assess their insurance coverage?
Absolutely. So thank you. Look, the quality tourism framework, I'll do the quick or brief elevator pitch of that. The quality tourism framework is a program that's focused on business development, and within there we have the quality tourism accreditation for businesses, which is really a way for businesses to benchmark against industry standards to make sure that they've got the appropriate policies and procedures, insurances, risk management plans, business and marketing plans, and human resourcing in place. And that's really about developing solid, sound principles for businesses. And that's such an important thing for any business to have in place so that they can not only deliver those quality exceptional experiences, but also to be doing it in a way that is meeting an industry benchmark and can demonstrate to other organisations such as insurance providers that you are working to a specific standard. Within our program, risk management is one of the core elements that we have in place, that all businesses must have a risk management plan, but we don't leave you alone in that. So many businesses do have a risk management plan, but if not, the program actually provides templates and samples as well as case studies to help businesses understand and start to develop their risk management plan. But the thing that we've just launched, I guess, an essay soon to be launching within South Australia, but a program that we've just made available through the Quality Tourism Framework is actually a risk assessment tool. And we're quite excited by this. It's for some a very perhaps dry topic, but it is such an important thing for businesses to have and to be able to do a really good risk assessment of their business. So this tool that we've developed, a business will go online, you can access it at any time that works for you, and identify what type of business you are, whether it's accommodation, food and beverage, tour and transport, retail. And then what the program does is lists all of the risks we could think of, and not only ourselves, but we went to external parties as well, to put together a very comprehensive database of risks that might impact your business. You can then go through and identify the likelihood of those risks occurring and then the consequence of those risks occurring to your business. On completion, you click submit and you actually get a risk assessment. It's a risk assessment document. That document goes through all of the risks. It categorizes them from high to low impact for your business or high to low priority for your business, and then goes into further detail around what you can do to prevent the risk from occurring and control mechanisms, but also what to do should the risk occur. And it's built as a Word document so that you can update it and input even more information specific to your own business. But it's a really great tool to help businesses really consider the broad range of risks that might impact their business.
Thanks, Erin. That's great. And yes, just to comment from the South Australian perspective, we have ATIC SA, we haven't launched that part yet, but absolutely watch this space. We love any new tools that help people navigate quality tourism accreditation, and yes, risk management and risk assessment can be quite tedious. So anything that can help make that process a lot more straightforward, we're very much welcoming, and we'll be getting that out to our members soon. So I guess, Erin, can you explain the role of insurance in risk management for tourism businesses and why that's so important for accreditation?
Absolutely. Look, risk management really is around the identification and control of risks. But unfortunately, no one can avoid risks absolute. What they can do is minimise the likelihood of the risk occurring and then minimising the impact should the risk occur, and how well the business can actually recover. And so that's what risk management is really about. And insurance is a really important mechanism to help businesses in that recovery stage, so that it can shift some of, and if it does depend if you've got your insurances right and have the correct insurances in place, but it can transfer some of that financial risk from a business to the insurer should that risk occur. So it's about ensuring that your business can continue, that it can recover, and that it has systems in place to overcome any crises or disasters that might occur. And it's all about business continuity. So whether it's rebuilding, or whether it's about being able to replace some essential assets that might have been stolen or broken, or what it might be, it's really about that business continuity. But also, on the other hand, it's about your guests, your visitors, your clients that you have, and insurance is so important to help them have the confidence that should they engage with your business, that they too have an element of safety should something happen to them whilst they're working with your business. And that's all about reputation as well. So if you didn't have the appropriate insurances in place, and someone injured themselves participating within your business, and you didn't have the insurances, and they were left unable to pay for, let's say, medical bills or what it might be, that's really impacting that business's reputation. And it's important that the customers have confidence that they can book these products and get these quality experiences.
Absolutely. And I guess your staff as well. We're going to touch on that as well in terms of key requirements or standards that business must meet for their accreditation. But yeah, I was just thinking about it's your visitors as well as your employees.
Absolutely critical. Yeah.
So what are those key requirements for accreditation around insurance?
Well, for our accreditation, it is specific to each type of business as to what insurances they may have. So we have an absolute minimum that all businesses have public liability insurance at a minimum of 20 million covered, and that's been put to us as the most appropriate minimal level of insurance, and certainly can go high, but the most appropriate minimal level of insurance a business should have in public liability. But there's also other insurances that businesses might have, and when we do the assessment for accreditation, we look at the type of business, what activities they're engaged in, to determine. But there are, there's indemnity insurance, professional indemnity insurance, there's workers' compensation insurance should you have employees. But our program really looks at what type of business you are, and then determines what types of insurances you should have in place. So not everyone would need insurance for, say, their vehicles, but certainly for tour or transport operators, that would be critical. But if you're an accommodation provider that isn't transporting guests around in their vehicles, and they've got a car but it's completely personal use, then that wouldn't be relevant. So it certainly works to what is relevant to the business.
Absolutely. And are there any ongoing requirements or obligations around maintaining the status of their insurance policies?
Well, for us, within the accreditation, they've got an annual renewal process that they must do, and they must have their update their insurance annually. So they need to make sure that their insurances are renewed, and that and we will reassess that it is still the most relevant types of insurances they have. We don't fill that space that Martin does in the brokerage terms as to what level of coverage. We highly encourage people to utilise the services of people such as Martin at Gallagher's to get a really good assessment of the level of coverage that they do need. We don't provide that sort of advice, but what we do make sure is that they've got the insurances that they should have in place. And then, yes, they need to renew them.
Martin, do you, I mean, obviously you need to renew your insurances annually, but in terms of reviewing your coverage, is that an annual exercise as well, or what's the frequency that you suggest?
We sort of suggest that every, well, I'll give you an example. If your business is quite established, we look at sort of 6 monthly review biannually. So we would then give you a call and say, hey, what's changed? What's happened? What's going on? If you're a new business, we tend to make that quarterly, because new businesses will, oh, Martin, we're struggling with this. I know we just picked up this major contract, or all of a sudden we've got all these tourists coming in. What do we need to be mindful of? So with a brand new business, we tend to want to hold their hand through the whole process. If it's an established business, it will probably be quarterly, or it can be 6 monthly. We just sort of determine on the aspects of the business, because we like to know how we plan that is we'll go, what's the future trends of the business? Where's the business going to be in 18, 2 years, 3 years time? We want to look to the future to make sure we've got everything covered. So, and some businesses are well established and they say, look, we've ran this holiday park for 25 years. There's hardly any changes, Martin. Then we wouldn't want to hold their hand through it because they're established. But when we find new operators or new businesses, we tend to really want to hold their hand and make sure we follow them through the journey and say that's important to tell us, because they don't some ways necessarily go, well, why was it important for you to know that, Martin? So we like to educate our clients along the way as well. So, yeah.
Right. Excellent. And Erin, I'm really interested in any case studies or examples from, what you see across Australia and the value that quality tourism accreditation can play when it comes to things going wrong in your business.
Sure. Look, the first one I wanted to talk about is, I mentioned before that risk management is around trying to prevent the likelihood of a risk occurring, and also the impact that it would have on the business should that risk occur. And COVID was a risk that to businesses, global pandemic that not many people at all saw coming, and the impact to businesses was, significant, to say the least. But there was a research piece done by the Victorian University that was released in 2021. And it actually found that businesses that were accredited through the Quality Tourism Framework were more likely to recover more quickly than those that were without accreditation. And what that shows to us is that those businesses that were accredited, they had really good systems in place that enabled them to really understand what it is that their business did, how they did it, and help them to identify how they could put in steps to be resilient throughout what was an absolutely devastating time for our industry. So I think that's a really great case study to demonstrate how accreditation can really support those business recovery efforts. And even as simple things such as having a place where these things are documented and outlined, your policies, your procedures are there. But I also did have another example that I'd thought of that, and I'm not going to name any names or locations, but we did have a business at one stage that was an adventure activity provider, and they were unfortunately involved in a very serious incident, which involved WorkSafe. WorkSafe became involved. And WorkSafe actually contacted our organisation as part of their investigation to look at what were the risk management and activity planning processes that business had put in place as a part of their accreditation. And we provided them with all of that information as per their legal rights for us to pass that information on to them. And what they actually found was that everything that business had demonstrated to us that they were doing, their activity plans, their risk assessments prior to the activity, their overall risk management plan, the staff training, all of those were absolutely appropriate and were fit for purpose for that organisation, and that they followed those, and that they could see through the system that they'd been updated on a very regular basis. And as an outcome of their investigation, they actually found that the business themselves, they believe, weren't at fault, that they had followed all the appropriate protocols. And so the accreditation program allowed them to demonstrate that they'd updated it, but also was like a central vault where they had all of that information that they could access that at that time that it was needed.
What an incredible story, given that unfortunately someone's been hurt. But, as a business owner, this sense of responsibility, but also the fear of the fallout from that as well. That's, a huge outcome for them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. That's been fantastic. I don't know, Martin, did you want to, based on some of the things Erin was talking about, make any other final comments from a insurance perspective?
Yes, certainly. What we're finding with the insurance, as we're all aware, is becoming extremely difficult to obtain because of natural disasters, litigation. So what insurers are requesting now as part of our submission to receive quotations is, what's the client's risk management strategies? What are their plans? What are their policies and procedures? So by being accredited, by using the risk management protocols and having that in place, it's going to make it a lot easier to get affordable insurance, and also make sure we get the appropriate insurance at the appropriate price, because the insurance companies want to see, well, how are you going to prevent a loss from occurring, or how are you going to reduce the impact? What are you doing differently to the business down the road? So if you're having that risk management strategy to start with, and we go to the insurance company as part of the submission to say, this is what you're doing, we're going to look at a more favourable outcome. And just to add to the point that Erin said about safe work or return to work, the director's insurance is imperative as well. So we won't harp on that today, but if you have to stand in front of a coroner and you don't have risk management procedures and documents, you're going to be in a lot of pain. So we can't stress how important the risk management and documented procedures are in this litigious environment that we live in at the moment.
Absolutely. And I guess it can be overwhelming for businesses to go down this path, but I think that's where hopefully the message is clear that, going through quality tourism accreditation is a way of helping to navigate that and providing you with the tools and support. And if that's something that you haven't embarked on yet, please do get in touch with us here at TIC SA, and my colleague Rebecca is fantastic and she will help you navigate that and make your way through accreditation. But then the piece around the support for finding the right insurances and navigating what we don't know, I think the role of a broker is just so important, and that's why we value having Gallagher's as one of our trusted partners as well.
Thank you.
Before we wrap up, any last opportunities for any questions? If anyone wanted to take themselves off mute, more than welcome to ask Martin or Erin anything. Nope. I hope there's a lot of digesting of information going on right now. But if you do think of something after the fact, you're more than welcome. Again, we'll send out some contact details. We'll send Martin's details out if you did want to take up that opportunity for the insurance health check. And please do get in touch if there's anything else you want to discuss. So thank you, Martin and Erin. That was really valuable. This has been recorded and we'll be sharing it with others as well. Any final words of wisdom before we sign off?
No, just thank you for having us. And it is not always the most exciting topic to talk about, but it is absolutely fundamental and crucial to any business. So, we highly encourage you use the services of people such as Martin at Gallagher's and look at getting your accreditations through the framework and utilising that risk management program as ATIC SA launches it.
Absolutely. Watch this space.
Yes, and I have to say thank you for having me as well. I really appreciated it. And please reach out to all of us, including ATIC SA. We're here to support you and make sure your business survives and grows and you have a profitable outcome.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, on that note, thank you both, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks.